Alright everyone, welcome to another game of Heroes of the Storm. This is a replay of a game that I played. I am playing the garage in this game, just so you know, because I am over here. Hello. And so this is replay, so this is part 3, the third step of my learning enhanced tutorial. This is probably the most important part, so I think that this is the tool that everyone can use. Now, if you notice, my graphics quality looks like garbage. That's because I'm recording this on my laptop. Not something I recommend doing. But it is what I do. So basically, we're going to be looking at everything that I'm doing in this game, and we're just going to be trying to go through. So I just missed the first play there, so I'm just going to go back a bit. And you know, this is again the nice part about starting the shit. Oh my god. Okay, this is the nice part about these replays is that you can just go back, you know? If you miss something, you can go back. You can look at it again, right? You can slow things down, because I was on faster speed. You can go things at least at normal speed. So, I'm just going to go through the first engage here. We can see that my team has 2 people missing. Their team is going to be all there, although I don't know that at the moment, which is why I'm standing back here. This seems like a pretty good idea to me. So then, material and material start to move up, so now I go ahead and grab material, right? Perfect play on my part. Right, that was an excellent play. That's the niche remark. I took a lot of damage, but that's because we didn't have 2 real people here, right? And we did it in our tower range, but that's perfectly fine, right? Less of an avatar, so I messed up there. That's the first thing that I could have done better, right? Is I could have not, you know, messed that up. So at this point, I barely make it out, so that was kind of punishment that I did for that. But I did still actually manage to do quite a bit of damage to the Imperious, even though he still had a top hat, so I think that after I messed up the initial throw, I actually handled that fairly well afterwards, right? And I'm just going to pause it here because I've been talking really quickly here at the moment because there's a lot of things to, you know, analyze. And obviously, it's going to be a lot easier when you're doing this in your head because I realized all of that kind of stuff in a moment, but it takes me a lot longer to articulate that, right? But effectively, this is the kind of things that you want to be looking for, right? Every single play that you make, right? So at this point, lanes have already clashed, right, in the bottom lane, so I have missed about, I think, actually, I'm not sure if I missed any of the soak here. I might have to go back just to see if I missed any of the soak here, but I probably missed about half a lane of soak. Yeah, so I missed about half a lane of soak here. But I showed up at least before the second lane is clashed. So as a tank player, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because I'm not supposed to be in the solo lane, right? I'm not supposed to be the one soaking, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm filling up for a mistake by my teammate, not necessarily one that I made. So that's something to continue looking out for. Like maybe I should have gone earlier to get these 2 globes to soak, right? But I at least get one of them, so I can even miss exactly half a gold wave, right? I got a little bit more than that. So at this point, I see that they're all still mid, right? So I try to push the lane as much as I'm trying to. Usually, as a tank player, I try to. What the heck? What is it called? Now I can't remember. We get the waves to go over here, right? I want the waves closer to my towers, right? Especially as garage is very helpful. So stalling the waves and stuff, don't kill them, is a lot of times what you do as tank, but I can see that 4 people are on the map here, so I think I make the right play here by actually trying to kill a wave, right? So these are kind of things that you go. So it's like, okay, so what are my options, right? I could proxy waves, you know, here. I could not kill their waves so that it pushes up into my towers easier, right? So that they clear my wave faster, right? Which is why I'm also spreading out my auto attacks, right? I want my wave to die because I don't want to get push here, right? I just want to deny them as much XP as possible. So that's something to consider, right? Maybe killing them one at a time if you want to get as much push as possible, right? So those are all the things, those are the possibilities of options, right? And now you just got to think, which one do I want to take, right? In this case, I see they're all mid, so I want to just clear what I can, get my XP so I can move up while still denying them as much XP as I can, right? And if I get pushed in the process, that's fine, but I'm mostly not denying XP, right? That's kind of, you know, what I want. At this point, I got pinged. Now, I will say this is probably one of the biggest things that I dislike is you can't really tell who's doing the pings. You can't tell what the pings are about. I don't even think you can see them in the moment. It kind of does suck, because pings are an important part of communication in the game, and I see that probably really the only thing, but you know, for the most part, if you can kind of remember what the pings were, like in this game it happened several days ago, so I don't remember what all the pings were. But I would recommend trying to do these things closer to when you actually play the game, and so you might be able to remember a bit of what the pings are, but regardless, I don't think it will actually hurt your experience. So at this point, I'm trying to line up for the throw. I think I should have been doing it earlier. I stood around here a lot, so I spent a lot of time doing nothing. Right, in that case, I did not do very much, so in that case, I think I tried to grab for Li Ming, but I saw that I wasn't good because she still had her teleport, so instead I went for material. Right? That's a kind of play that's a bit riskier, because obviously we did not get material, we did force an attack there, but I also didn't get very much value, so at this point I go back down bottom because Mia's getting a free push, right? So I think that was a big mistake on my part. I should have waited a moment longer. There were still 2 minions, they were very close to dying, so I should have waited before I threw her. Right, so in that case, that's a mistake there. So I should be like, hey, if the minions are going to die really closely, really soon in time, I should just wait for them to be dead before I try throwing people on my towers, right? That way they take more tower shots, right? She only took 1 tower shot, where she could have probably taken 3 or 4 tower shots, right? Which is obviously what you want, right? You want more tower shots in them. So in that case, that's something. So I played everything nice. What did I do? I didn't wait for these minions to die. What ended up happening was that she only took 1 tower shot. The alternative would be more tower shots, right? So the change of behavior was that I should have waited and thrown her in later, right? And at least I would have gotten 1 more tower shot out of it, and then I would have been able. So now I'm here. I see. So I was trying to. I can't remember what it's called, so I was trying to stall, get my way to clear faster. I might have wanted to stick around just for that 1 XP blow, because I had already stuck around for a little while. And also we can see that our Jaina is not here, so I think that I make a pretty right play of not moving in here. Just by trying to position it properly. I'm trying to stay behind this thing, so they don't have like 100% sight of me unless they leave the actual point. Right, so that's a good play there. But here now I'm saying by my towers, I'm way too far away. Way too far away for anything to happen, so that was when I'm not making the right play. So there I missed on the thing, and ended up getting caught out for it. I do try to put on the entires, and I do try to capitalize on it, but my team wasn't, none of them were there prepared for it, so at that point it was pretty worthless. Sorry. So maybe I shouldn't have tried going in a little bit just to get the Imperious there, but instead just tried to walk back out. And I might not have taken so much damage, I might have been able to get back to full HP from the path. So at this point, I throw away the Imperious from Eve, that was probably a good play, but it ends up that the Nova ends up dying anyways, the Bella ends up dying. I can't really do very much about that, so I don't feel too bad about it, right? I can't do anything about what my team does, right? It's just them to do things, so I don't feel too bad about those 2 people dying, because I did my best to save the team, right? He was the first person to start dying, I did my best to save him. Right. At this point I start auto-attacking the thing, Medivh gets annihilated because he's way too far forward, right? And so at this point I'm looking for a throw, I think, but at this point we only have the Jaina, right? And the Jaina is obviously just using her abilities to pull down on random things, so I really shouldn't be waiting to get a throw. Right, I should at this point be doing something else, like I could be going down and soaking this lane or something else, right? I'm not hitting the protector, I'm literally doing nothing here. I took some damage, and that's not a good thing either, so I'm giving them free damage, and I'm getting no value out of it, as well as not getting any soak or something that's missing on the map. So that's something I could have done better. Right, I'm going to just be so quickly for this one. So at this point I walk up to it to try to do it. I walked a little bit too close up, although I'm still getting used to, so I don't think that's something. But something still to notice is like I walked up too close to the thing, so I got hit by its knockback, and at that point it made it they got a little bit farther away from our towers, so before I was able to actually kill them. So I might have been able to time that a bit better so that I was on the edge of the thing, so I could actually walk in, because the knockback was just farther back than its edge was, so that's something to keep in mind. Right, so at this point I move back down to the bottom lane, so we're just collecting the XP. We are on an XP deficit, likely because of the kills that they have, as well as the buildings that they took, right? But they did not get our fort, nor our fountain here, and they did not get, and they only got the gate. They did not get either of the 2 towers, although this one is about to die, so it'll probably die as soon as something goes, so it probably won't get very much for our value. But they don't have the XP from that, which is valuable. Right, so because they don't have this here, right, they're not getting half the XP from that, but they still have 5 more kills than us, so that's probably why they have an XP lead at this point. I don't think there's actually a way to see what the minion soaking and all that kind of stuff is. But you can see that I have 4,000, almost 4,500 XP soaked now. That's above now our Jaina, even, right, who is probably the person who has the best capability of soaking on our team, right? You know, and so at this point they have their ults, so we need to be careful, right? That's something to keep in mind, and, you know, it's like, I'm just trying to soak this lane now, because now there's no one here. There's not very much for me to be doing except soaking, so I don't think that really anything that I'm doing here is particularly bad. I mean, we have to be soaking. The fights that are happening up here are just big mistakes in general, but there's not very much I can do about that again, so I just really know what I need to be doing, and I don't think that it was necessarily that big of a mistake to not go up top where there was a fight happening, because the fight shouldn't have been happening at all. Right. I might have been able to be more cognizant of the fact that there was a fight happening in the team. So at this point, I came out during the main wave, and that really did, and that posed an issue for getting the Li Ming, but I ended up capitalizing on that kind of. I don't know if it was necessarily a mistake or not, but it was at least an unfortunate occurrence. It is something that I could think about, maybe trying to make sure that I time it better with the mini waves and stuff, but that's not something I can really control very easily. Regardless, I did a fairly good job of capitalizing off the mistake that was made there. To this point, you can see that they're still soaking all 3 lanes, right? And that's probably why they keep maintaining their XP lead really nicely here. We are now no longer soaking the top lane, so I probably shouldn't have left at all. I left to be with my team and to be somewhere that wasn't top lane because they still have the Li Ming there, and I can't really do anything. Excuse me, to prevent her from soaking. But I think that I should have stayed top just to soak some of this XP, because now there's XP that we ended up getting from the Nova, but it's still kind of, risky to be relying on that kind of stuff all the time, So at that point, it's like, as well, I spent a lot of time deciding whether I was going to go between top and mid, and so at that point, I wasn't actually doing very much. There was a camp here that we could have taken, there was a camp here that we maybe could have taken, and that would have been quite risky, because we didn't know where the team was, right, and there was preparation for a point up here. So at this point, I start walking up. My team is right here, and I'm over here. I'm preparing to go in this way to try to throw back this way, because this is a much better area to fight, but I should have realized that our team was looking for a fight right here. Right, our team is already backing up at this point, so I think that I shouldn't have been so far forward, right? I always went in the safe spot there. So it ended up that no one ended up dying on our team, but no one ended up dying on the enemy team either, although they did have to use several of their ults to do that, so it's not necessarily the worst thing that happened, but I definitely think that I could have capitalized on the situation a lot better. So, I mess up the Tyrael there, that's pretty usual, so obviously that was decent play. I mean, the Tyrael isn't a super big target, but it's not good to... It's getting a kill is another point about it. So they still have this turret here. So at this point, it's a bit, awkward to be doing this kind of stuff. We ended up killing the Mei, which is really good, and we should be able to be moving in here, although I'm quite low on HP and we don't have a healer. So that does pose a problem. We have a full HP Imperius as well, who has the damage count, so I do need to be very, very careful with that. Right. That's something that I need to make sure that I'm careful of, and I think they did a decent job of being careful of that here. But all at the same time, I think I could have been more aggressive, and I would have been able to get more value. So that's stuff to think about. It's like, you're not always going to have the answer, like, whether or not that play was better or not, but if you get at least a little bit for time. So I ended up having to go back because of HP. I don't know if that was really a good idea or not here, because it ended up making it so that we lost the point again. Right. So I might have just been able to use my W, right, on the Tyrael, right, and just try to get HP back that way. That might have been the better play. Or try to get, like, regen globes and stuff from this lane, which is something that I could have done. But now I've backed, and I've had to force basically everyone else in my team to also take that back option, but a little bit slower. So now I do have my we are now even talent tier, though, so we actually can get a pretty good fight here, if we can do it. But our Nova ends up going up through the top and ends up getting revealed by people, and so our Nova's in a pretty bad spot, but I don't think I noticed this at the time, because I wasn't expecting the fight to happen, because we can see that we don't have our Medivh with us, right? And so at this point, fighting here is a really big mistake, because now we're... Well, I guess we can see the Mei, so maybe it's not a super big mistake, right? But it isn't necessarily the best thing, so we end up fighting into the Ultimate Evolution as well, which isn't great. Not losing anything. This is pretty actually impressive on the fact that we really haven't lost anything. So we ended up time stopping and killing the Tyrael, which is quite nice for us. Right, now they only have one person in the mech as well, which is really good for us because that means the mech isn't getting any value. So I'm just going to try to get damage on it as much as I can here. So then if I can do this, then it still isn't getting in. I just want to keep the Mei from getting inside the battle. So at that point, I did my thing too early, and so we didn't actually break the shield as fast as I thought we would, so at that point I messed up, and I didn't get off the stun. Instead, I just hit them with the ping, so that was definitely a big mistake on my part. I should have waited a little bit longer for that. At this point, they're just brawling us here in the mech, and the mech is going to be a lot less valuable, especially with only one person in it, than it would be at the Imperius just outside of the mech. So this is a really good, so that was a really good, like, kind of fight for us to take. We're up numbers anyways, and also one person in the mech. So it ends up getting very little value out of this mech, and I try to get into position to try to do it, but we can see that Jaina doesn't want to help at all. And then I end up getting hit by the thing. I should have been able to unstoppable that. Like, obviously I still have my unstoppable ability, so if I had unstopped that, I would not have died there, and I would not have saved the Imperius' life, because I'm fairly certain that he would have died if I had done it. But I also recognize that, so obviously, you know, that's something I recognize. But that's still something that I need to internalize, that I need to be looking for in the future, that I need to make sure that I'm using my unstoppables properly when I get CC like that. That's so obvious, right? So at this point, I'm dead, so there's not very much I can do. The things that I keep thinking about doing is this siege camp is up, we got this fortification camp is up, this lane is fairly pushed in, so we can get XP from it fairly easily. This wave is fairly pushed in, so we can get XP from it easily. This wave is pushed in. Basically, anywhere that I go on the map, I can be getting value. And I can't get the camps on my own, so at this point, soaking is probably my best option, because I'm unable to get coordination from the rest of my team. Right, so at this point, our fort goes down here, and I'm glad that I went mid, because if I had gone up top to try to save the fort, I would have failed. Right, so that's a good play on that part. Right, and again, this is kind of just like, I'm just watching everything play, watching everything I'm do, noting if things are good or bad plays, right? And a lot of things I do are going to be bad, because many things that I'm going to be doing are going to be good, right? That's just kind of how it is, right? You know, so at this point, I continue to, you know, push into the middle lane, right? And just continuing to do that, right? Nothing super special. At this point, I don't really think that that is a bad thing or a good thing. You know, I mean, like, I'm not getting very much value, but I don't think I'd be able to get very much value if I tried to fight anyways. So at that point, again, I get hit by the Wrath. Yeah, that's not really, I mean, I think my unstoppables are cool again, but so again, I'm the reasons where I should have unstoppable some obvious CC. At this point, do we end? Yeah, okay, so she bribed it. No, I was going to say that I should probably take this camp, but she bribed it, so that's fine. What I did was fine then. Although I did not know that she was going to bribe it, but I did see that she was going towards it, so I should have tried. At this point, I tried to go and use the holy ground. So I end up, he's still taunted, and I know this, so I can move up really far, and he'll have to move after me. It was a very actually nice coincidence that he had the move speed bonus, so he actually moved it really far. So that was a bit of a tech there between that. I knew that the taunt duration was freezing, so I was just able to move to get him to have to run after me. So that's something to think about, right? So you know, thinking creative ways that you can use your plays, right? So things like that are actually quite useful, obviously, a lot of times. Like, I don't think the Tyrael would have died here if he had just been taunted and I had stood here. Right, but because he was pulled back into our tower reach, it forced him to take a lot of extra damage that he would have been targeted. Oh boy, I'm talking very fast this game. I'm glad that nothing is happening at the moment, though. So at this point, we see that 2 of our people are here, and then the other 3 of us are here. I end up taking quite a bit of damage to Apomine, which is quite unfortunate, especially because we don't have a healer. But that Apomine damage is pretty permanent, which kind of sucks, but there's not very much I can do about that, so I don't feel super bad. As well, they didn't come in very quickly at all, so I don't feel super bad that it was pretty late of us. That I was pretty late getting here, but that is something that I still should have been able to improve on. I shouldn't rely on the enemy teams who are playing poorly. Right, in order to do it, we had people who were playing the lane, so I should have been moving out. Right. At least there's a better line of defense for this Nova and Medivh. I probably can't do very much offensive capability here, but I can at least do some defense. So we end up time stopping this, which is really good. I'm pretty low HP though. So I'm stuck here. I'm thinking about, do I want to go in or not? And I'm deciding to go back in after something's happened, but I think that I should. And so I guess I ended up getting value, although maybe not, because again, they would have killed them anyways, but I think that I was a bit indecisive here, where I could have been much more decisive, and I could have probably gotten that kill sooner. Saved some damage, maybe even a kill on someone like Arvala. I would have actually been able to help them if I had been more decisive in that decision. Although decisiveness is also something that can be kind of difficult to determine whether or not it's something that you actually improve on or not, you know. But that's, you know, something to consider, right? And that's really important. right? You're not always going to know, really, even in the replays, what the right play is going to be, right? Or if there's something that, you know, you could have known, because of, you don't know exactly what you knew, right? Which is one of the reasons why I recommend, again, doing it closer to the actual play, so that you can remember a bit more about what you actually knew. But you know, you can make judgments and things to remember, to just keep in mind when you're playing the game, right? And that's kind of the important bit that you want to keep in mind, right? Because you're just looking to see what kind of general play improvements that you can make, right? So any kind of changes that you can make to stuff like that is going to be beneficial, right? So at this point I start brawling the Mei, and I end up doing quite a bit of damage, but I don't really think that was super valuable, right? Like, I recognize as well that the mech is on like 10% HP, and so they can't get really very much fort damage out of it, but at that point, instead of just doing what I'm doing now, which is just using it for damage purposes, right, I should have just gotten out of the mech long before then, and, you know, just done it normally, because as a hero, as Garrosh, I can do a lot more than the mech, right, that's something to keep in mind. So I've stayed in the mech for far too long there, that I should have just, I wasn't using the mech for mech things, which is dealing damage to buildings. So I should recognize that I was trying to team fight, and at that point I wasn't getting any value out of mech, so I shouldn't have been doing that. So I go ahead and I get my stun here, that's pretty good. I ended up messing up the stun there, and then I end up accidentally going to the portal. Although I ended up not stopping from getting the kill, but that was a pretty big series of misplays there. Maybe not a misplay as far as ruining the Rain of Destruction goes, because that isn't something that I could have known without coordination. But it is still unfortunate, and that's something to keep in mind, you know. Because now my Valor just wasted a 50-second cooldown, jeez. In order for basically nothing, right? Actually, not just basically nothing, for actually nothing. That's something to keep in mind. Not necessarily something that I might have been able to improve upon, but it's something that, you know, maybe I could be more cognizant of the ultimates of my teammates, right? I shouldn't rely, but at the same time, you know, relying on that stuff isn't good either. So at this point, I have a pretty good sense here, and I got in the bush, although they don't move forward. So, and this, I threw the Imperious to try to add a, that wasn't a very good plan on my part, and then just getting the Imperious get a bunch of extra auto attacks on me, because I had to move back through here at that point. So I ended up having to waste the turret and stuff here. Not very good. So I don't think that was necessarily a great play to pursue them this far, because they didn't have anyone on my team, right? So then you consider I should have just, you know, tried to get value somewhere else, because I didn't have my team there to get value with me, right? And as Garrosh, there wasn't very much there that I could do on my own. Especially because there were so many of the enemy team. Right, so at this point I'm just trying to position, you know, around where my team is, where the enemy team is, and just trying to get vision on them as much as I can, keep them off of vision for myself. I could then help with this camp taking, because there's nothing much on the map that I can get value to doing. So at this point I move out, I try to get a little bit of vision on the enemy, so I throw them, and so at this point she does nothing, so we could have gotten probably 2,000 extra damage on them if the Nova had been paying attention there, but she wasn't. So at that point, that's not really a misplay on my part, and I can't really, you know, there's nothing that I can do about that. So again, that's not a play. I think I did a decent play by throwing the 2L closer, forcing them to go around our Nova, but our Nova didn't engage in it, so that's, you know, and none of that not being valuable, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a good play, right? Man, this is a long game, wasn't it? So I ended up doing this exact same thing again, although this time we have the Vala here. Although they also have a lot more people here, so I end up actually turning around. The Lee Ming goes up real close to us, so I end up turning around and getting a 3-man taunt. I throw them into the invulnerable, which really wasn't a very good idea. I wasn't providing them much value here at all. At this point, I'm trying to block the Q. I don't end up doing it with the unstoppable. It ends up not really doing very much for me, so that's not great, but it's not bad either, necessarily. I mean, I was pretty doomed there. There was 3 people. If I started making my way up earlier, where the rest of my team was, I might have been able to help them as well as get out myself. But that ended up just being a pretty bad fight for us, because they expended their cooldowns much more efficiently than we did, right? In that way, it's like, kind of their team comp is a bit better for that than ours is, right? It has lots of, it's very tanky, it has lots of burst mitigation, right? And it has lots of AoE damage as well, which is, our team is entirely burst damage, except for the Vala, who has a lot of sustained damage, right? but also the Vala is going for auto attack build with Rancor, so she's going to be really vulnerable to things like that Li Ming and the Imperious, right? Very vulnerable to that kind of stuff, so they're very, very good kill comp, right? They have a lot of kill pressure on us, so, anyway, it's like macro pressure is kind of our help here, right? And I'm just supposed to offset the deficit that we're at during team fights, right? And I think that that's kind of a mentality that I might have been able to internalize a bit more, you know, the fact that, even during team fights, we're gonna be weaker because of how much, like, HP shielding on, like, just, like, AoE burst damage and stuff that they have, right? They have a lot more of that stuff than we have, right? We have lots of burst that is, a lot of it's single target, though. A lot of it is, you know, damage that they can then mitigate with between the Tyrael shields. They have Abathur shields. They got, I guess the Imperious didn't take his shield talent, but then they also have on top of the Maze got her shielding stuff, right? They're a very, very tricky team, right? Imperious is self-healing, Maze self-healing. Tyrael doesn't look like he took the self-healing, but I mean they also have Abathur who's a bit better at healing than Medivh is, right? So that way their team comp is a lot better than team fights. So I think I probably could have internalized that a lot better. During this, so at this point, nothing too much to happening that I've been aware of. I haven't been paying too much attention because I've been trying to explain some things. So I think that wasn't the worst plays I've ever seen. It definitely wasn't that great either. We ended up at this point. It's like I wasn't able to put very much value there. I tried to go in to help our Jaina get out, and then ended up dying in the process. And then Jaina still dies. Oh, she dies. Yeah, because she gets teleported too. Yeah, and that was very good on the Imperious part. She almost made it out even without my assistance, right? So really, what I did was a complete waste, you know, because it didn't get her out, right? And who knows if I even would have gotten her out anyways, and I ended up dying in the process. So I gave them one free kill for nothing. Okay, so that was a very bad play on my part in that way.
Blue team has destroyed the fort.
So at this point, we obviously undead. We're just kind of, three of them are kind of stalling at this point. There's not very much that you can. When you're dead, you can't really tell them to do anything. Because of course, if you're not doing it, you might be able to ping stuff, but that's, you know, again, you can't really guarantee that people will actually follow it. Right. So we see the ultimate evolution gets used really early, but it does end up getting a value by killing her with use, so that's means that it's like, I might have been able to note that ultimate evolution was used, but then, at that point, wow, that's nice. So I ended up wasting my ultimate as well, trying to stop the Imperious from taking on Arnova, right, when he was already dead, so I ended up wasting that. And as well, I go to start chasing people away, but then our DPS follows and ends up so that all of the catapult pressure that I've been building up for many ways ends up killing our core. So it ends up as a loss. I mean, I bet you couldn't tell that coming from pretty early. You know, so it's like, that's kind of the idea, though, is I hope that you guys kind of got what I was trying to do, right, with the replay. I didn't go back at all in this. Most of the plays were pretty straightforward. Usually, if there's a play that I want to make sure that I know exactly what happened in, I'll go back and I'll rewatch it several times, right? I didn't have to do that this time, which is actually quite odd. But yeah, don't be afraid to use the tools here that you have in the replay. Like, it's very helpful. It takes a while, you know, to do it all, but I mean, if you actually want to learn from it, then you have to you have to make sure that you understand what happened, right? And going back in time and all that kind of stuff it can be very helpful, right? So I mean, but that's basically, you know, what, like, my thought process is like, what did I do, right? I want to know, what did I do, right? what was the end result? Right. Can I think of an alternative path of action that would have ended in a better result, right? That might have ended in a better result. And at that point, it's like, if not, then okay, that was a pretty good play, right? If I can think of something, then I was like, okay, maybe I should try doing that more often in the future. And of course, in this point, now your goal is really just be as creative as possible, right? You want to think of as many different solutions, right? When I was talking about things that I could have done while I was in that bottom lane at the very beginning of the game, right? I gave a lot of different options between proxying. Do I kill the wave? Do I kill the wave like one person at a time, or do I kill them where I spread out my damage as much as possible, right? And each one of those has a different end result and a different goal, right? And not all of those are determinant, right? And not all of those are very good. Like, I would never proxy on Garrosh because you're just going to die and you're not going to get any value because you have no wave clear, right? You're going to take lots of damage from the wave, probably. It would take a long time. You're not going to get very much building damage or deny any soak, and they're probably just going to kill you anyway, so you're getting about 0 value, right? So I'd never do that, but it's something to consider as well, right? It's still something that I can consider, right? Because if I'm on something like Murky, proxying is really very valuable, right? Because now you have a very fast wave clear. Dying doesn't really matter, right? And you can actually deny them that wave of soak, right? Because they have to either deal with you or they have to deal with your minion wave, right? And if they deal with one or the other, then if they kill you, that's actually you've gained XP over them, because one minion wave is worth more than a quarter of a kill, right? So, you know, kinds of things like that. You want to just be considering as many options as you possibly can. You want to be, you know, trying to figure out what the basic outcome would be, right? Using the outcome that happened in the game. If you had changed your behavior, what would have been the end result, right? And if you can think of a way that you would have gotten a better end result, right, then you want to internalize that and be like, okay, then in the future, I need to be more cognizant of my vow as Arena of Destruction, because what I ended up doing was I ended up throwing the guy out of the Arena of Destruction. He ended up dying anyways, which is good, but I ended up having to waste a lot of extra time doing it, which we could have been doing other things, right? Or I needed to internalize the fact that their team comp was better during team fights, so I needed to be more careful doing team fights, but at the same time I need to be decisive once I actually want to start a team fight, so that I can actually get a throw, so we can use our high burst damage effectively before they can get their burst mitigation out. Things like that, right? You have to recognize what the team's strengths are. You know, these are things that, but anything that you would normally do in a game to decide what you're going to do, you're going to do it again here, right? Which is why I described it initially as playing the game again, right? You're playing it a second time, because you're going to be doing exactly everything that you're going to be doing in a normal game again while you're watching the replay, but this time you're not actually going to have to be hitting all the buttons and stuff, and you're not in the game, so you can be much more objective, right? You can have much more time to think about what's going to happen rather than, you know, having to spend mental effort doing it, right? Which is, again, why I have you do the first 2 steps, because the less mental effort you can do doing the steps, the more you're going to be able to do this step during the game itself, then be able to make better judgments during the game, right? So all of this, basically, adding up to sum up to my, you know, my 3-part tutorial, you're just going to have to be doing this, right? Over and over and over and over again. Right, you probably will never have to repeat step 1, but steps 2 and 3, which step 2 is outlined at the end of my last video, part 2, and this is obviously step 3. The entirety of this video was a detailed look into that. You're just going to have to repeat this over and over and over again, internalizing something new every time you look at a replay, every time you go into the collection mode, reinforcing it just a little bit more, right? And every single time you're going to be learning something, just tiny, tiny, tiny pieces more new, right? And it's painful, right? It's long. It's boring a lot of times, right? But there's no getting around it, right? This, if you want to improve in HOTS, I think that this is the best way, if not the only way, to really do it effectively, right? So, thank you for watching to the end of the video. If there is anything that you would like to see me do, or any questions whatsoever that you have to this kind of 3-part series, then please say so down in the comments. If you liked this video, a like would be very much appreciated. If you have liked this and some of my other content too, then a subscribe would be exceedingly well appreciated. Thank you again for watching this far to the end of the video, and have a wonderful rest of your day.